Hi there. I'm Dr. Suzanne Bechtel, a passionate legal educator dedicated to making legal studies clear, practical, and even a little inspiring. On this channel, you'll find a growing collection of videos designed to help you prepare for the Certified Paralegal exam. It covers key topics, breaking down complex concepts, and offering study tips that actually stick. If you're looking for a deeper dive, check out my Teachable School, where I offer structured courses, interactive tools, and exclusive resources to support your journey towards certification. Watch this video to the end and you'll find a coupon code for a discount. Don't forget to subscribe and explore the playlists. Your success on the NALA CP exam starts here. Now, before we move on to the lecture, there are two important disclaimers. First of all, this is not considered legal advice. Everything shared here is designed to support your learning journey. Also, I am not a lawyer. This course is designed to help you understand the concepts of the exam. In this lecture, we're going to cover incorporation. And don't forget there are lecture notes. You can follow along that way, and also in the lecture notes, there are some review questions after each topic, 10 or 11 review questions to expand your critical thinking. So this lecture will focus on the formation of the corporation. Thus, incorporation is the title of the lecture. We'll start with pre-incorporation matters through the organizational meeting. Specific goals we'll meet are learning some vocabulary like articles of incorporation and certificate of incorporation. We will discuss the incorporation requirements and what things are considered prior to incorporating a business corporation. Those procedures will be covered from pre-incorporation to the organizational meeting. A little bit about the role of the paralegal in the incorporation process, and resources are available, and those also will be in the lecture notes. All right, so the corporation doesn't exist until it's properly incorporated, and the articles of incorporation or a certificate of incorporation are typically filed with the Secretary of State or other appropriate state official. The individuals who form the corporation and sign those documents are referred to as the incorporators. So if you want to find the exact requirements for incorporating a business corporation, the state statutes and rules of the Secretary of State or other state authority would be a good place to start. Pre-incorporation matters include all the steps that are taken by the incorporators or promoters of a corporation prior to its incorporation. So including the decisions going on here, deciding the best form of business org, choosing the state of domicile for the corporation. And before that decision is made to incorporate the business, and all of the other types and forms are also considered. Some of the areas that we look to when we're trying to help a client determine whether incorporation of a business corporation is a good choice or some other choice would be good, just looking at their income tax implications, the capital requirements, the applicable statutory requirements, desired management structure, importance of limited liability and transferability, and the ease of forming and dissolving the business entity. I guess I should also say that I would add income tax implications are really a very highlighted area in deciding on this, but the other one would be liability versus limited liability, and it's not included on this list, but I should include it in the future. I'll put it in the lecture notes. So next slide. Also, you have to choose a domicile for the business. So you choose a state or jurisdiction for incorporation, for each consideration being made, there are several factors. What's the nature of the business, of the act that governs business corporations in the state that is being considered the domicile, the costs associated with incorporating, and what are the trends in the judicial arena toward corporations. Is the name available that the corporation wants to use? Does the state law with regard to shareholders meetings, they have to be out of state, or can they be held in out of state versus in state? What little criteria are there based on who needs to be at those shareholder meetings? The liability, as I was already pointing out, is really super important for shareholders and directors to look at in light of this decision. And corporate records, and how are those, what types of records are to be kept. Then there are annual reporting requirements for almost every type of business, and what would that look like for the state that a business is considering incorporating it. So Delaware is a very popular state for incorporating because it does have a liberal, they call it the incorporation, quote unquote, incorporation state. And it's the state of domicile for more than, there's probably a million corporations by now that are involved in Delaware. It attracts them because it has corporate laws that are most liberal. And the user-friendly Department of State, the Division of Corporations there, it's set up to handle incorporations very easily and efficiently. Under some circumstances, the founders of a corporation may set their understanding and agreement concerning the proposed corporation in a pre-incorporation agreement. A stock subscription, and these are vocabulary points, a stock subscription is an agreement to purchase a stated number of shares of a corporation for a future corporation at a stated price. And attorneys and paralegals will meet with the client prior to incorporation. They'll gather the necessary information, such as that a lot of what was discussed on the previous slide. They'll get that information and have a pre-incorporation meeting, decide what steps are next. So, promoters and incorporators. Promoters are sometimes the formation of some corporations involves a promoter. This is an individual who assists in creating and promoting and organizing a corporation, and this person often obtains stock subscriptions for their purpose for very proposed corporations, so they get some compensation typically in that way. The actions that are taken by the promoter on behalf of the corporation prior to incorporating, we would call those acts pre-incorporation transactions. So they need to be valid. They need to be ratified and approved by the corporation after it's formed. So this process of promotion of the corporation during the pre-incorporation stage requires meetings and documentation, etc., so that later they can be ratified as having been approved by the corporation after the corporation is formed. An incorporator is the individual who signs the articles of incorporation or the certificate certificate of incorporation on behalf of the corporation. And the incorporator doesn't have any formal duties like the promoter was discussed in the promoter section of this slide. Even after the corporation has been successfully formed, it's basically a person who signs the documents. Of course, they can have more formal duties later on, but the general sense and the definition of the word is simply that person has a minimal role of simply sign here. The name chosen for the corporation has to have certain wording, like incorporated or corporation or limited, or the initials, Inc., Corp., or Ltd. The name that's chosen for the corporation can't already be used in the state where the incorporation is taking place, and so you would need to, and watch for things that might be deceptively similar. and it can't be misleading to the public, using words that indicate it's formed for one purpose where its actual purpose is completely different. And then in advance, if we're uh, not ready yet to incorporate, we can sometimes have and some states, Secretary of State or whatever official might have a way of holding a name, but as in reserving the name in some way. But there's any doubt the name might be acceptable when the articles of incorporation are filed, then we might want to do that. So articles of incorporation have some mandatory provisions, and it's obvious. This is like a 2-page document. It's nothing. You can get these online at any government office that handles corporations or businesses in the state. It has to have its name, the number of shares it's authorized to issue, the street address, and the of the registered agent and registered office. They have two different things: a registered office and a registered agent. Don't necessarily have to be the same place. That I don't believe. And the name and address of each incorporator is included. We set forth in the articles of incorporation the number of shares authorized for each class of shares. If the corporation issues only one class of stock, it's called common stock. And then we set forth, just the detailed information that we need. Mentioned earlier, the Model Business Corporation Act. Some optional provisions may be included in the articles of incorporation, and those are listed in the lecture notes. But there are other areas that the standard form that you pick up from the Secretary of State's office isn't quite that robust. So other things can be added, and if the law permits. There are often some default provisions in state statutes. Unless you provide it in the Articles of Incorporation, some things will be assumed that by default, like shareholder accumulation of voting rights. Maybe shareholders may have to remove it of one or more directors with or without cause. Shares of the corporation, what classes they are, might have a default provision in the statutes. So keeping your eye on that as you go through things, and also know that I have included a much more lengthy list than what I just spoke of in the lecture notes. And the corporation basically doesn't go into existence until the articles of incorporation are filed and accepted by the appropriate official. And some states might have other local level publishing rules, like in a legal newspaper. But that's basically, it's pretty simple. And then there's an organizational meeting after the articles of incorporation have been filed and approved by the Secretary of State. So the organizational meeting is where the incorporators and initial shareholders and board of directors are typically attending. And it's not named when the first board in the articles of incorporation, so they have to have the organizational meeting to complete the internal bringing to life of the organization. And it's primarily, the first one is to appoint the board of directors. Other things that are usually taken, steps that are usually taken, as already mentioned, we have the board of directors decided on. They approve the articles of incorporation. The corporation accepts them officially into their corporate notebook. And everything that happened by the promoters and incorporators, as we spoke of earlier, become ratified and approved. And stock subscriptions are accepted and stock is issued. And officers of the corporation are elected and the bylaws are adopted. What type of accounting method to be used will be approved. the form of the stock certificates, whether any securities filings are approved, and they adopt the corporate seal and establish a bank account. If they want to elect an S Corp, they would do that at the organizational meeting. And if there are any employee benefit plans being adopted, those would be approved and adopted and approved of at the organizational meeting. And then basically the end game there is the shareholders approve the election of the board of directors and decide on their term of office. Let's see that. So everything's documented in meeting minutes. It's really important. We keep that stuff forever. So, the bylaws. The corporation's bylaws, these are the rules and guidelines for internal government and control in the corporation. The MBCA, Model Business Corporation Act, has some provisions that bylaws can contain. So they have some examples of what bylaws might look like. So the idea is, that you want them to be consistent with the Articles of Incorporation. What's included, the address, typical stuff, the address of the principal office, the annual and special, the dates and the requirements, or the requirements for the annual and special shareholders meetings, the numbering term of the directors. So it kind of brings the articles, the organizational meeting is, a lot of that is the information, decisions made there are also used to draft the bylaws. So, how are people going to be compensated if they're a director? What are their limits of liability? The titles of corporate officers. I mean, the list is long, and it's right here on this slide as well as in the review notes. So, special types of corporations formation. We might have some different requirements for these kinds that you would look to the statutes and regulations for those special types to see what you need to do to form those. Is it a check the box somewhere? Is there a particular election form that has to be filed somewhere? Is there need to be any kind of public notice, like newspaper? Formation of special types of corporations, you would look to your statutes for that. Paralegals in this area have a robust set of responsibilities. So this slide sets out some of those, and then there are resources as well for the paralegal in the review notes. So that concludes the lecture on incorporation. Thank you. I hope you got some good information from this video lecture. Don't forget that I have a Teachable school account. Here is the address for that, mayananda-s-school.teachable.com. The name of my school is Mayananda. And also there's a coupon here for you to save some money. And finally, good luck on the exam. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.